Good morning, boys and girls. We're going to be starting a brand new novel today, and I'm really excited that I got to read chapter 1 with you. We are going to be reading Stuart Little. Mrs. Farley and I know that you do not have the book at home. We sent your parents and we shared a doc with you in Google Drive of the entire Stuart Little novel. Also, if you go to the slide before this slide, there's a little yellow link that says Stuart Little Chapter 1. If you click on that link, you'll be able to see all the pages I'm going to be reading out loud to you today. You may want to pause the video now and go back and look at those pages, or you don't have to print the pages, but you may want to just open them up and you can shrink the windows so that you can have the pages on one side of the screen and me on the other side of the screen, so you can read with me as I'm reading aloud to you. If you don't want to do that, that's completely fine. You can listen to me read chapter 1 to you today. We will be asking you questions after, and you could either rewatch the video to help you answer the questions, or you can go reread the text. Either way works. So I'm very excited about reading Stuart Little because Stuart Little is written by an author that we've already read something by. I'll give you a hint. This author is the one who wrote Charlotte's Web. Hopefully you've come up with it. It's E.B. White, okay? And you should know a little bit about E.B. White after we did that research project about E.B. White when we started reading Charlotte's Web. So we're going to be reading another E.B. White book, Stuart Little, okay? And we're gonna start that today. All right, so here's the front cover. And inside of the book, I'll try to make sure to show you as many pictures as I can because the versions that we shared with you online doesn't have the pictures. All right, so chapter 1 is called In the Drain, and there's Stuart. Here's our first page. All right, chapter 1, In the Drain. When Mrs. Frederick C. Little's second son arrived, everybody noticed that he was not much bigger than a mouse. The truth of the matter was, the baby looked very much like a mouse in every way. He was only about 2 inches high, and he had a mouse's sharp nose, a mouse's tail, a mouse's whiskers, and the pleasant, shy manner of a mouse. But before he was many days old, he was not only looking like a mouse, but acting like one too, wearing a gray hat and carrying a small cane. Mr. and Mrs. Little named him Stuart, and Mr. Little made him a tiny bed out of 4 clothespins and a cigarette box. And there's Stuart in his tiny bed. Unlike most babies, Stuart could walk as soon as he was born, and when he was a week old, he could climb lamps by shinnying up the cord. Mrs. Little saw right away that the infant clothes she had provided were unsuitable, and she set to work and made him a fine little blue worsted suit with patch pockets in which he could keep his handkerchief, his money, and his keys. Every morning before Stuart dressed, Mrs. Little went into his room and weighed him on a small scale, which was really meant for weighing letters. At birth, Stuart could have been sent by first-class mail for 3 cents, but his parents preferred to keep him rather than send him away. And when at the age of a month, he had only gained 1/3 of an ounce, his mother was so worried she sent for the doctor. The doctor was delighted with Stuart and said that it was very unusual for an American family to have a mouse. He took Stuart's temperature and found that it was 98.6, which is normal for a mouse. He also examined Stuart's chest and heart and looked into his ears solemnly with a flashlight. Not every doctor can do that without laughing. Everything seemed to be all right, and Mrs. Little was pleased to get such a good report. Feed him up, the doctor said cheerfully as he left. And here's a picture of the doctor checking out Stuart. The home of the Little family was a pleasant place near the park in New York City. In the mornings, the sun streamed in through the east windows, and all the Littles were up early as a general rule. Stuart was a great help to his parents and to his older brother George, because of his small size and because he could do things that a mouse can do and was agreeable about doing them. One day when Mrs. Little was washing out the bathtub after Mr. Little had taken a bath, she lost a ring off her finger and was horrified to discover that it had fallen down the drain. "What had I better do?" she cried, trying to keep tears back. "If I were you," said George, "I should bend a hairpin." A hairpin, boys and girls, is a bobby pin, something that girls put into their hair, and it's kind of two thin pieces of metal. So I'm going to start the sentence over. "If I were you," said George, "I should bend a hairpin in the shape of a fish hook and tie it into a piece of string and try to fish the ring out with it." So Mrs. Little found a piece of string and a hairpin, and for about a half an hour she fished for the ring. But it was so dark down the drain, and the hook always seemed to catch on something before it could get down to where the ring was. "What luck?" inquired Mr. Little, coming into the bathroom. "No luck at all," said Mrs. Little. "The ring is so far down, I can't fish it up." "Why don't we send Stuart down after it?" suggested Mr. Little. "How about it, Stuart? Would you like to try?" "Yes, I would," Stuart replied, "but I think I'd better get into my old pants. I imagine it's wet down there." "It's all of that," said George, who was a trifle annoyed that his hook idea hadn't worked. So Stuart slipped into his old pants and prepared to go down the drain after the ring. He decided to carry the string along with him, leaving one end in the charge of his father. "When I jerk 3 times on the string, pull me up," he said. And while Mr. Little knelt in the tub, Stuart slid easily down the drain and was lost into view. In a minute or so, there came 3 quick jerks on the string, and Mr. Little carefully hauled it up. There, at the end, was Stuart with the ring safely around his neck. And in this picture, you can see Mr. Little kneeling down into the bathtub and pulling Stuart up on the string. And Stuart has the ring around his neck. "Oh, my brave little son," said Mrs. Little proudly as she kissed Stuart and thanked him. "How was it down there?" asked Mr. Little, who was always curious to know about places he had never been to. "It was all right," said Stuart. But the truth was the drain had made him very slimy, and it was necessary for him to take a bath and sprinkle himself with a bit of his mother's violet water before he felt himself again. Violet water is perfume. Everybody in the family thought he had been awfully good about the whole thing. And there's Stuart sprinkling himself with violet water. And that's the end of chapter 1. So I hope you enjoyed chapter 1 today of Stuart Little. And if you need to rewatch this video to help you answer any questions, that's fine. Or you can go back and read those pages in the slide before this. All right, thanks, boys and girls. Bye.